Good evening and welcome. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the program this evening, after a surprise announcement, a rethink. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley tells the government to hold the IT forms in which you would need to provide details of expenses and all your foreign travels. Hold them back. They're not going to be introduced just yet. The headache for taxpayers may well be over, but will this rollback hamper the government's anti-black money drive? That's what we're looking at this evening. Well, a collective groan from lakhs of taxpayers may well have forced Arun Jaitley to have a rethink on the new IT forms. Had he not rolled back the new system, you would have had to account for foreign travel details, both personal and professional expenses abroad. You'd have to disclose foreign assets, declare beneficiaries of foreign assets, provide more details of trading activity, more details on agricultural income. You'd have to disclose the number of bank accounts that you hold. Mr. Jaitley has now asked the Revenue Secretary to put the new ITR on hold. Joining us to debate this, the reasons. Let's try and understand why he's done this. PN Vijay, leader of the BJP, and the well-known banker. Salman Sood, spokesperson of the Congress Party. B.B. Bhattacharya, economist and former Vice Chancellor of JNU, are with us as well. Let me come to you first, Mr. Vijay. Why do you feel that Mr. Jaitley had to roll this back?
Well, as you just pointed out, Vishnu, it was a very detailed document which asked assessees to disclose every foreign trip of theirs, including the passport number, the places visited, and also it said that did you do this out of your company's account or your personal account? If personal account, what is the source and all that? We already have in the system for the past few years in the law that there are forms that where you disclose your bank accounts held abroad, and you disclose also your assets held abroad. So this being so, this just apart from being slightly odd, to say the least, would have put so much of workload on people that I know with all this overseas investments by Indians going on and all the globalization, there are very good friends of mine who go out 4 times a month to 3 or 4 different countries, and it's going to be such a painful job. I'm very happy that Arun's put a lid on it. But then the bigger issue, of course, is the law, separate law we are bringing to try and block foreign Indian money going overseas illegally.
And all of what is being planned to curb black money as well. Salman Sood, do you welcome what Arun Jaitley has done, perhaps belatedly, but he's done it? It was just perhaps unrealistic to expect any tax department to be able to collect all of this data, let alone for individuals to be able to process it. How do you differentiate between money a company gives you when you travel abroad, for example, and your own personal expenses? It's difficult, isn't it? And unrealistic.
It is very unrealistic. But first of all, I'm glad that Mr. Jaitley has asked the department to withdraw this particular form. But I think it also kind of speaks to, I think, the mindset that we have in this country. I think the form as it was designed was extremely intrusive. It was almost as if the government has to be told exactly what you're eating, what you're drinking, how you're spending your time. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is the 21st century, and if you want to go after black money, there are many different ways of doing that, and not all of them have to be about intrusion in private life. And creating, tax compliance, make it easier. Make it easier for people to pay you taxes. People are paying you taxes, make it easier for them, not more difficult. Yep. So I think, for example, I'll give you a very simple example of how you can, make a dent in black money. Try and, for example, in J&K, when you buy property, you have to you take a lot of cash to the government and say, okay, here it is by stamp duty or whatever. Why cash? Why not deal in bank transactions through checks or some electronic mechanism? Right. Why don't we digitize all land records in this country? Those kinds of things will actually make a dent in black money, not this kind of, tell me. You're basically you're telling everybody that you're guilty until proven innocent. Right. That is the mentality of this particular tax form. You're all guilty, unless you prove otherwise.
13 million Indians travel abroad. There are 40 million income tax payers. The vast majority of those 13 million who travel abroad make less than 2 trips a year. This being the case, tourists would be affected. Small-time businessmen and businesswomen would be affected. The environment that the government seeks of transparency, of simplicity, of a non-adversarial tax base, a tax structure, would have been demolished had this gone through. Why in the first place was the government thinking about doing this?
Well, it's surely some amount of administrative overkill. I wouldn't say legislative overreach, because this is a purely administrative instruction that's come from the CBDT. You see, to set the background, why they could have possibly done this was the new black money law that's been introduced in Parliament will become effective from 1st April 2016. So this might be, I would say, I agree with Mr. So's, quite an amateurish effort to try and dig out as much information from you as possible, so as to prepare the department to, as it were, launch their attack on the taxpayer. So that's the only reason I can.
No, but Mr. Vijay, it's interesting that you would endorse what the Congress spokesperson has to say. It doesn't happen too often. But is that because perhaps the party, the BJP, felt that this was a wrong move, that the party persuaded the government to roll this back because there was a disconnect between these policies and, say, the middle class?
Absolutely, I agree. I'm not saying that the BJP is divine or anything like that. We are very sensitive to what the people feel. After all, Vishnu, let's put this debate into a slightly bigger perspective. Why did we bring out this legislation? You would agree that in the previous elections held in 2014, many parties, especially the AAP, made this the single biggest issue. And the BJP put a very strong stand on this and said, as soon as we come to power, we would tackle this menace of money stashed away abroad. And even the Congress taunted us in Parliament that you have talked so much, you said within 100 days what's going on. So there was intense civil society pressure on the BJP to do something in a legislative basis, and that's the whole basis. And having said that, there are many people who have represented to me in the party that the bill itself has certain draconian measures in terms of imprisonment, etc. So it's still in the public domain. Right. It's been introduced. I'm sure a lot of intellectuals and academics and businessmen will come forward with the suggestions. Okay. And I'm sure there will not be a legislative overreach or legislative overkill on this.
Mr. Bhattacharya, that being said, the need to get after black money offenders is a national cause. It has to be the case. And the intent over here may not necessarily have been wrong. It's the way that they've gone about suggesting it, which perhaps they've realized now was not realistic. How does the government actually crack down effectively on those who do break the law, who do have foreign assets abroad which they don't declare, who have financial assets abroad which they don't declare, who actually use black money to travel abroad, right, without actually inquiring in the manner in which the government had sought to do?
First of all, this particular act would have collected a lot of useless information. As you say, millions of people like us travel, attend conference, seminar, unnecessarily keeping details, burdening the income tax department. This is not the relevant information. What you need, you make all national bank accounts digitalized, linked to PAN number. Make it compulsory. Everybody, every account must have a PAN. PAN would be automatically monitored by the income tax. You make mandatory anyone having foreign accounts must declare, or you make agreement with possible foreign countries that you declare which of our citizens have what kind of foreign accounts, and joint agreement. What you need is basically bank information, bank assets, bank wealth and assets. This could have been done through digitalizing and strengthening the banking transactions rather than asking
There's
individuals.
also an effort to link all of this to the Aadhaar card. There's a separate column which was proposed to have been added for Aadhaar.
Again, another useless information. What you need is a PAN.
Right.
If you have a PAN is linked
that
to your
makes
bank
the Aadhaar
accounts.
redundant in this case.
PAN is linked to your
Yes.
bank account.